Alright, the compositional consciousness from the microscopic through the gigascopic. Let's start here. Alright, there's a brain. I'm pretty sure it's conscious. I mean, that's what I believe. Our consciousness seems to be related to that. Can you decompose into conscious parts that are subjectively conscious? Might relate to your subjective conscious as opposed to behavior one? Why, yes, there's split brain syndrome. People have their corpus callosum severed. And it appears in this situation that, yes, each half is conscious. And they both exist in the same body with some connections, but without the major connection that allows them to be conscious as a unit. Now, my belief is that if this is the case, then when the corpus callosum is intact, and these two halves are communicating, they're each still individually conscious. And the consciousness of the whole is somehow composed, or at least includes the consciousness of the parts. Right? So right now, each of your brain has a separate consciousness, but because they're communicating so well, they also have a shared whole consciousness. And they meld together so well, it's seamless. You can't tell where one starts and the other ends, but they both still must be there. It can't be that it comes and goes. So obviously I think that this sort of thing breaks down into the nerves, and the nerve is the little tiny conscious thing, and our consciousness is just the sum total over trillions of those things. Amazing things can happen with little tiny properties if you get to add them up a trillion times. Alright, so what about the other direction of composition? What about other brains? Now, do you think this group of brains could somehow be conscious as a whole? I mean, we already showed that two halves of a brain could connect. Well, I mean, I think it obviously is going to require some connections, but if the connection was a corpus callosum, it doesn't seem hard to imagine at all that, yes, these could be connected, just like the two halves are connected into a single bigger consciousness that a bunch of separate brains can be. The problem would seem to be that they don't have that good of a communication. So we have to look at the communication, right? If a corpus callosum would do it, then what about something that red brain waves, in the skull, had nerve endings, transmitted the signals into electromagnetic radiation received by somebody else turned into brain signals. If you could connect brains like that, then, groups of brains could be conscious. Are they now? Well, you can look and wonder if our current communication is high bandwidth enough, but I've seen groups of people act very different and seem to have very different consciousness and awareness of different things than any of the individuals in those groups. I personally think we probably have high enough bandwidth communication between brains to have at least a very dim consciousness in the group, associated with the group. However, I would say evidence shows currently it's very, very dim and not at all what one would call an intelligent consciousness.